Governor Patrick is on the line with us, and we haven't visited in a while, so we haven't had a chance to say congratulations on your election, obviously, some time back. Good morning, Governor.
Well, good morning, Bob. Hey, I appreciate it. Glad to be with you. And I don't know if it's a new sheriff in town, but there's one heck of a new posse in town, because we have 9 new senators out of 31, new governor, new lieutenant governor, new attorney general, new land commissioner, ag commissioner. There's a lot of energy and a lot of willingness to do big and bold things, and we're leading in the Senate, and we laid out a $4.6 billion tax relief program for homeowners and business owners yesterday, and that's just the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, that's, sounds like to us, we're not in the millions now. We've moved to the B's.
Yes, we moved to the B's.
You're going to cut 4, and, well, the statesman, by the way, said 4.5.
4.6.
It's 4.6.
Roughly 4.6 is the number.
You know, that seems like it could do some real good in saving us money, but it also seems like you're going to have to cut something.
No, we're not actually going to have to do that, Bob. Let me tell you why. Look, our economy is cyclical in Texas, like anywhere else, but it's been stronger in Texas than anywhere else. We've created more jobs than all the other states combined over the last 10 years. We have $11 billion. Think of our accounts at the state level, Bob, as a savings account and a checking account. And our savings account, known as the rainy day fund, we have about $11 billion, or we'll have by the end of the fiscal year. That's more money than the other 49 states combined have in reserve. In our checking account, because of the boom in oil the last couple of years, and our economy growing and our sales taxes growing for almost 3 years in a row, we have enough money to send back to taxpayers. It's their money, so we should, and small businesses, so about $4.6 billion. And we still have money, probably another $4 billion or so, to address the pension that we have to bring in line, retired teachers' health care. We have to address that issue. We'll do that. We want to pay down debt. We're going to add billions of dollars to transportation, and we can all do this within our constitutional budget cap without busting a budget cap. And so we're going to take that money, about half of it, again, send back to taxpayers, and half of it to address needs that weren't addressed over several years, just like maintenance on many of the buildings we have in the state, bringing them up to par. We just have a lot to do. We're going to do both.
Going to do both, but so you're saying that, there's no danger of, like, Homeland Security or, DPS or, losing a big part of their budget or doing away with things that are going to cause a subsequent outcry?
No, as a matter of fact, Bob, I'm in the Senate. We've increased funding for border security, which was my number one priority in the campaign, and along with the Governor Abbott, we stand strong in that. We're increasing funding for border security and DPS from $400 million to $800 million in the Senate budget. Again, we've had this incredible growth in Texas over the last several years, and oil prices are down, and we'll probably have a little slowdown, but it will come back. But we're a more diversified economy than we were in the 80s when we had a big drop in oil prices. But we can do these things, and what happens is you'll have some people say, well, what about this or what about that? We're going to fund all of our priorities, including education. For example, by cutting $4.6 billion in taxes, that's primarily school taxes, but we're replacing that money for the states. For the school districts. So the states, because we have the excess sales tax revenue, we're going to be making sure we keep the school districts whole, but we're cutting people's property taxes. We're doubling the exemption from about $15,000 to $33,600 this year.
The exemption being the Homestead Exemption?
Yes, sir. That you get a $15,000 Homestead Exemption. And what's important about that, Bob, is that back in the 90s, it was $5,000, and George Bush, when he was governor, made it $15,000. It's been that way for 20 years. Well, back in the mid-90s, your average home in Texas was, $65,000, $70,000.
Oh, good point.
Today it's $134,000. So that $15,000 is not as worth as much as it was then. So we're basically doubling that. And then what we did is we said, moving forward, your homestead exemption won't be a flat number. It will be 25% of whatever the median price home is. So as home values grow, your home exemption grows. That will save several $100s per year for each homeowner. And obviously, depending on the price of your home, 25% of of the average is greater. If you live in a $150,000 home, that is more of an impact than a more expensive home, but it will still continue to grow. And then what we want to do is the next step, which I've been fighting for when I was a senator for 8 years, is we have to address, Bob, the appraisal value. We cannot have your property taxes connected to the value of your home going up 7, 8, 9% a year. People can't afford it. That's always a bigger fight. I've been fighting it for years, but that's the next step we want to tackle.
Now that could be another significant savings right there for the homeowner.
It would be huge because if the average person is getting a 2 or 3% increase in their salary, but their value and you want the value of your home to go up. You want that. That's a great thing. You buy your home and have it go up, but you can't be taxed at the increasing value, and by just slowing that down so that you're not taxed on that full value has a dramatic savings on your taxes, because that's how taxes go up more than the tax rate. Most cities and counties and school districts don't raise the rate, but the budgets go up 7, 8, 9% a year because the value goes up.
Yeah, that's
yeah, and we have to address that.
That's the oldest trick here in Travis County. I was going to say, if you want to look for a model of how not to do it, you might study Travis County.
Yes, and that's a bigger battle, but we're going to take it on.
Well, frankly, the way media reports, and not to slam media, but boy, that's and you know media. By the way, for the folks who don't know, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick spent the majority of his life as a radio reporter, sports guy, and then extremely successful political talk show host in Houston, and radio station owner. And believe me, there's nothing more lowlife than a radio station talk show host and radio station owner. So you can make something of your life if you try.
Yes, you can. See, there's a future for you, Bob. There's a future. Well, you know what was really great about that? I started out in television. In fact, I joke with people back in 1977 when I started out in television. I was working at this little TV station in Scranton, Pennsylvania. I was the first Dan Patrick sportscaster.
That's right, the first.
The one came after me, but I got hired to Washington, D.C., and they hired me because I was cheap coming out of Scranton. They hired this weather guy from Syracuse named Al Roker. I don't know whatever happened to Al, but he and I started on the same day in 1970, I guess it was 78 or so, in Washington. Then I went to Houston with the CBS affiliate, KHOU-TV, for about 5 or 6 years. And then I've been a talk show host for the last, since 1988, as you do, and I moved into politics in the 90s. And it gave me a great sounding board to listen to people and find out really what's on their mind. As you know the pulse of the public better than anybody as a talk show host, particularly if we're talking about conservative listeners for the most part that listen to talk radio. And it also gave me a chance to interview all of these elected officials over a decade plus. And it gave me a chance to study and learn the issues. So when I ran for the Senate in 2006, everyone said, Dan can't win. He's the radio guy. And we got 70% of the vote in a four-way race, which was unheard of, eliminating a runoff. And they said, well, of course he won. He was the radio guy. And we've been in the Senate for 8 years, and I still have the radio stations. I just don't have time to do it. I haven't been on the air doing my own show for about a year and a half.
We're going to run Bob for something we haven't figured out.
Oh, yeah, run me down the Pflugerville.
Well,
hey, Governor,
Mike Pence out of Indiana, who's the governor there, he was a talk show host.
I didn't know that. Well, Dick had a question.
Hey, Governor, this is Dick Ellis.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you this morning?
I'm wonderful.
Good. Senator Watson issued a statement yesterday in general supporting at least two fingers of this proposal, but he said he can't get behind cutting the franchise tax because he says it would be irresponsible to cut it off that important stream of revenue, because before we know what the legislature's obligations are going to be to fulfilling the constitutional responsibility for schools. And I just wonder about, that's a lot of money, and we still don't know what's going to happen with the school kids.
Senator Watson's wrong about that.
Yeah, well, and first of all, I was happy that Senator Watson was a co-author of our Senate Bill 1, which doubled the Homestead Exemption. And on the franchise tax, let's put the numbers, let's put them in perspective a moment. When the franchise, and I was not here when the franchise tax was voted in, I would have filibustered it.
Thank you. I was going to say, cut it. I wish nothing could be better for this state's economy than get rid of that one.
Yeah. And that's my goal, Bob, over 4 years. And what we did yesterday, we raised the floor to $4 million for small business. So businesses under $4 million don't have to pay it. And that's 52% of all the businesses that pay the tax.
Whoa, that's huge. So if the bill passes,
yes,
a small business with revenues under $4 million a year will finally be exempt from this.
They'll be exempt.
That's the only major screw up I saw Rick Perry do that I would be very critical of.
And we already have the votes in the Senate to pass it. We have 22 bill authors already, so we're going to pass it in the Senate. And then the other bill we introduced yesterday, we introduced 3, Senate Bill 1, 7, and 8. And the other business tax bill says for all those businesses still paying it, we're going to cut your taxes by 15%. And my goal is over the next several sessions to eliminate it. Remember, when the business tax passed, and it was projected to bring in about $4 billion a year. Sometimes it's been under, sometimes it's been over, but let's say $4 billion a year. Our budget was about 170 billion. Now our budget's 200 billion. So that 4 billion is even less. And so my point is, as our budget is growing, and most of our money that we get in the state, more than half, is from sales tax we collect, we can eliminate the business tax, and we're not going to blow a hole in the budget. And the other thing that people have to remember is that the way we generate our economy in Texas is by bringing businesses to Texas, letting entrepreneurs start a business in Texas, and hiring people who buy things and pay sales tax. We don't have an income tax in Texas. We're never going to have one under Republicans. So we get our money from sales tax at the state level. Well, if you keep the economy growing, you can continue to eliminate and cut down property tax and get rid of the business tax. What a better promotion to bring businesses to Texas to say, look, we have the best tort reform in the country. You're not going to be sued in a frivolous lawsuit, and we don't have any business taxes. You talk about that's where you want to come open a business. It's
really interesting and inspiring to hear all of this, and you referenced it first, all the new energy there, to hear this energy in you. Lieutenant Governor, I was thinking the average person, the way you've got this structured, isn't really going to notice it. But from what you've explained with property taxes alone, they will. The state is in charge, in essence, of 5 different taxes that we feel. Your sales tax, property tax, or portions of those, business margin tax, sin taxes, and motor fuels tax.
Yeah.
And since you weren't, say, affecting sales tax, I was thinking, well, he's cutting $4.6 billion. We won't see it every day. From what you're explaining, I'm optimistic we're really going to feel this.
Well, think of it in the big picture. When we're sending $4.6 billion, or whatever the exact number is, darn close, back into the public's hands, that money is going to be spent back into the economy. So that's a really good thing. Some people will get more, some people will get less, but it's $4.6 billion. That's a lot of money. So that's a positive thing. Again, we have to address the appraisal issue on the home sale side of things to bring those taxes down. But we're going to continue to look at more ways to put more money back in people's pockets. This is why Texas is outshining every other state, because we are a conservative model. And what is the conservative model? It is light regulation, get out of people's way, keep taxes light, and let people prosper. And we see it every time. We saw it under the Reagan administration. When you cut taxes or you put more money in people's pockets, the Treasury actually gets more money. And that's what's happened in Texas the last couple of years. Again, we'll see a little bit of a dip now because we get a lot of sales tax as a indirect result of the oil and gas business. But it will come back, and it will come back strong. So
you're
I feel very
anticipating
good
that.
about it. Yeah, okay. I do. You know, it may be a year before it bounces back. No one knows for sure, but it will come back. And the other issue, like you talked about, the gas tax, we're going to end the diversion on the gas tax. It's time to end all these diversions. What we did in the past, what happened in the past before I got here was a tax was created for a specific purpose, and then the money was never used for that purpose. So we're going to end the gas tax diversion, all but that part that is dedicated by the Constitution to education, which is about 25% of the gas tax, but we're going to actually put it towards roads. We're going to take the sporting goods tax that was created for our parks, and we're going to take that, and we're actually going to give it to our Parks and Wildlife Department, where it should go. So what's happened, guys, is not only are the new state leaders, and the 9 new senators and new House members, but you have other people who are getting new opportunities. For example, a Senator Taylor, a Senator Hancock, a Senator Huffman, a Senator Birdwell, they were in the Senate, but they've never been a chair. Well, now they're chairman of committees. And so they're energized. So everyone is energized, and there's been this kind of pent-up demand for big ideas. And I'm about big ideas. People didn't elect me to maintain status quo and play small ball. We need to do big things.
And we've taken far more time here than we had asked you for, so thank you. But I think that's, the fact that we're going to feel this is a big takeaway. The other big takeaway I'm getting here is how much bipartisan support you have. We mentioned at the outset that complacency, the same thing every day. You don't come up with big ideas like this.
Right.
And then when you come up with a big idea like tax cuts, typically, and I don't mean this in such a partisan way, just objectively, Democrats are going to line up to stop you. But you've got Kirk Watson and the major Democrats on board to make most all of this happen.
Yes, sir. And one of the reasons is and I talked with one Democrat senator yesterday that I called in the morning before the press conference and wanted to be sure, we had their support on the bill. And as this Democrat senator said to me, who can be against cutting property taxes for their citizens? Who can be against cutting taxes for small businesses? Because in the Democrat community, let me tell you what, they have the same folks that are struggling with paying property taxes, and they have the same small businesses that need help. So, putting money back in people's pockets should not be a partisan issue. And I'm really pleased, quite frankly, with the bipartisanship we've had in the Senate. We had this big blocker bill rule that we changed on the first day that had been on the books for 70 years that I've been fighting for 8 years. And as a senator, I was not able to move it. As lieutenant governor, it's still a senator's vote, but we have a little bit more influence. And so it used to be it took 21 votes to bring a bill to the floor. There were only 19 or 20 Republicans, so it always took a Democrat or two to join you. Well, now the rule is 19 votes to bring a bill to the floor. Only 16 of 31 senators to pass it, a simple majority, but it's 19. That was a big change in the rules. And the Democrat senators, I've said this to everyone in the media, that was a big change for them because they can't block bills now as easily as they could before. But they've handled it very professionally. They understand that elections have repercussions. And look, Greg Abbott and myself and the other statewide, we only lost 12 counties in the state in November. Only lost 12 counties. And I think in 150, we got 70% of the vote. What that reflects is not about me or not about Greg Abbott or any one individual. It reflects where the people of Texas are. They're conservative. They want, that they stand for conservative issues. That's who we are as a people. And even in the Hispanic community, which is very conservative, by the way, when people said, well, Dan Patrick is strong on border security and that's going to hurt his support in the Hispanic community, I got 52% of the male Hispanic vote. And General Abbott and I, Governor Abbott and I combined got 46% of the Hispanic vote. So I think that sent a reverberation through the Democrat Party to say, gosh, you know what? A lot of our voters that we used to rely on are actually now very conservative, and they support a lot of these issues. And look, there will always be differences between Republicans and Democrats, but I've been in the Senate 8 years. I've had great working relationships with the members across the aisle. This is not Washington, D.C. The Texas Senate really does, most of the time, not always, work pretty well together across the aisle. Not all of the time, but most of the time. But there's a fight on voter ID, voter ID, and there's a fight on redistricting, and some of those partisan issues. But 90% of the plus time, we're working well together. And Kirk Watson and I, for example, we can agree or disagree, but we do it in an agreeable way if we disagree. And that's the way I think people expect government to run, and that's the way the Senate's running. And I appreciate everyone working together.
Sorry to interrupt, but you're talking about being a talk show host and, hearing from a lot of people. That is what people want to hear.